Yo, it's Elut. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing test hands with branded Synchro. This is the list I'm working with just in case, you wanted to see it or whatever. I have a video going over the choices and things like that, like a whole deck profile. I'll have a link to that if you want to see it. And the only note I want to make is that Cheng Ying here is a flex spot, so that's why that is there. The only other thing I want to say is the reason I'm doing this on Dueling Book is because I wanted to try to change the format a little bit rather than playing with like the actual cards. And Dueling Book, I kind of prefer for this over something like Edo Pro because I can talk about, especially with a deck like this, the different options and the different lines you can choose to go for. And it's easier to sort of go back and then try different things and explain stuff. So I'm trying this. If you prefer this over like the normal in-person camera playing with the cards, or if you prefer playing with the real cards or whatever, let me know. But we're just going to try this out, so we'll see what happens. And this is our opening hand. So Beast, Albaz, Saronir, Branded Fusion, and Cartesia. So yeah, we hard drew Branded Fusion, but the main goal of this deck is usually not Branded Fusion. We want to avoid this, especially if we're going first. If we're going second, and this is the play, then fuck it, we ball. But especially with this hand, we can definitely do some other things. So first thing I think about is, what am I normal summoning? And this deck has 4 solid normal summons, being Albaz, Cartesia, Quem, and occasionally the bystial Alubur. We also have Mercurier, but Mercurier as a normal summon is pretty useless, so we're really never going to be doing that. Out of these 2, though, that we have access to, Albaz is simply a better normal summon because we can just special Cartesia after the fact, so we get both. We get more Link and or Synchro material that way. So that's one thing. The second thing I think about is how many bystials do I have access to? And right now it's just 1. Luckily, though, this can get more bystials into the rotation if he hits the graveyard, which is really good. If this was lubellion, then obviously that can search another bystial to our hand, so it does a similar thing. Generally speaking, you want to see 2 bystials in your opening hand if possible, and throughout your first and second turns, you want to get as many bystials into the rotation either in your hand, on the field, or in the graveyard as possible. So we'll go to the main phase, and also just quick note, it's a little unlucky that we drew this, but it's not actually the worst thing in the world. But we'll go to the main phase, and we will normal summon Albaz, and immediately after, just so we have some insurance, some extra protection, we can special Cartesia to the field because we have Albaz on field. Simple enough. This is also why I said in my deck profile video, it is like kind of mandatory to play cards like Striker Dragon, because we really need to get things into the grave for our bystials. That's like the third thing I think about. It's like, all right, what am I normal summoning? How many bystials do I have access to? And how am I getting things in the grave for the bystials? Because depending on the matchup, you might just get bystials on the board for free, depending on what you're playing against, if they have a lot of lights and darks hitting the grave. But you also have to just be able to be self-sufficient in that way. So playing things like Striker Dragon gets Albaz into the grave. So that's really good. We can then special Saronir by banishing Albaz. Simple enough. And now we have a level 4 tuner and a level 6. So we can go into our Synchro 10s. And we play a couple Synchro 10s, being Barone, Dispotter, and Cheng Ying, like I said, flex spot, whatever. Normally, though, you are going to want to go for Dispotter. And the reason for that is because it's a Dark Dragon that is above level 6. So you can tribute it for the Bystial Lubellion, which is pretty important a lot of the time. On top of it just being a solid card, and it is a bystial by name. We'll get to some of that other stuff in a bit, but we're going to Synchro right here for Dispotter. Okay, here we have Saronir's trigger effect. When he hits the grave, he can send a branded spell or trap or another bystial to the graveyard. And our top priority right now is getting the Bystial Lubellion to the graveyard, so we will send him here. So he will go to grave. Cool. The next thing we do is we activate Dispotter's effect, and we can target any banished light or dark monster. It doesn't have to be in our banished pile. It could potentially be in our opponent's banished pile. and reborn it to our field. So we will target Albaz for this, obviously. So this will just special summon back. Easy enough. Then what we will do is really our last thing here is to tribute Dispotter, because Dispotter's kind of done for right now, in order to special Lubellion from the grave. So now, do Lubellion's effect. We drew Branded Beast, which is kind of unlucky, but that's okay, because normally we're going to try to prioritize getting Branded Regained through the bystial Lubellion. If you have access to only one of these two continuous back rows, you're usually going to prioritize Regained. So we get Regained on field. And then the last thing we do is we link again 2 dragons for Hieratic Seal. And then we can just set the Branded Beast, and we can go to the end phase. And I don't think we have anything on end phase. We didn't have a fusion hit the grave, so Cartesia is staying there, and all that sort of stuff. The other thing to note here, just in case you're maybe newer, or you're not aware of it, or whatever, as soon as we made Striker Dragon, this Branded Fusion is dead in our hand, just in case you didn't know that. Branded Fusion is not the kind of card where after you play it, you are locked to fusion monsters. It is for the entire turn that you play Branded Fusion, you can only make fusions from your extra deck. So that just means it goes both ways. If you play Branded Fusion, you can't link into Striker Dragon, and if you make Striker Dragon, you can no longer play Branded Fusion for that turn. But we didn't really need Branded Fusion. So what do we have on board right now? What are the things to talk about here? Because I like to also, in these test hand videos, talk about what the plan is going into turn 2, because I think that's pretty helpful and pretty important. So this board looks rather minimal. We have Seal, Bystial Lubellion, Regained, and Beast to flip up on our opponent's turn. So let's just flip this up and pretend it's our opponent's turn in the main phase, whatever. So anytime our opponent summons anything, that will trigger Regained. And we can target a Bystial in our graveyard to special back to the field. Since we made Dispotter, he is obviously going to be priority number 1. So Dispotter will come back to the field, and Dispotter is Dispotter. Secondly, we have Branded Beast. So that's a free pop every turn. And we can tribute any dragon monster. So we could technically tribute any of these to pop a card on our opponent's field. So you don't actually have to tribute a Bystial for this. You just have to control a Bystial in order to activate it. And then you must tribute a dragon. So that's solid. That's a free pop. Whatever, right? Seal is, I think, one of the best cards in this deck. Like, Seal is just kind of insane. Especially when you consider, like, yeah, you can, you know, activate Seal on your opponent's turn, and you don't have to tribute itself. Usually you're going to want to, though. And it tributes for cost, which is kind of cool. So let's say we tribute Seal, and then we bounce something back on our opponent's field back to their hand. That's one thing that's great. When Seal is tributed and hits the graveyard, it has a mandatory effect to special a dragon from the hand or the deck. And, you know, this could be another Bystial. We could get more Bystials into the rotation, right? So we could say, yeah, I want to see Magnemite here, because I want to search on end phase. Or you could say, all right, I haven't used Branded Beast yet. Maybe I want to bring out Druis Worm, because Druis Worm is a 2-for-1 pop. Because you can pop Druis Worm with Branded Beast, and then Druis Worm's Grave effect, when he goes from the field to the graveyard, can send another special summon monster on your opponent's field to the graveyard. And it is not a destroy. It's a send to grave, which is also worth mentioning. But because we play the Branded Engine in this deck, we can always go into Albaz if we decide that's more valuable. And if we have a card to pitch in our hand, we can do that. And then here, of course, you know, the options branch out even more. Because if we just, you know, want to fuse with a generic extra deck monster, we can always just go into Mirror Jade. And, you know, for the branded players out there, I don't really think I have to talk about Mirror Jade too much. Mirror Jade is Mirror Jade. But there's also a lot of options on top of that, because if you're just fusing with, let's say, a light monster. Let's say it's a light monster. And we make Albion. Then we can go Albion effect here and fuse. And again, we could just go into Mirror Jade, We have 2 Albazes and 2 Link monsters in our graveyard. We could very easily do that. Or we could go into something like Borreload Furious. Like, let's say we go into Borreload Furious by banishing Albaz and let's say Striker Dragon. 2 Dark Dragons, we make Borreload Furious. Now, we just got 2 more monsters on the field, 2 more dragons, so these are technically, you know, ammo for Branded Beast. And this, because we just banished Dark Monsters, also triggers Regain's second effect, and we can target one of these to shuffle back to the deck and draw a card. You could make an argument for shuffling back either one of these. I would probably just shuffle back the Striker Dragon, but it doesn't super matter because we still have 1 banished card in here for Dispotter's effect, potentially, so that's good. We shuffled back Striker, we draw for Regained. That's a baller-ass draw, to be honest, because, you know, again, if we haven't used Beast yet, this is a 2-for-1 pop if this is on the field. So that's really good. This is also a pop, so we can pop, like, either of these 2. Let's say, you know, there's something we want to pop on our opponent's field. We target Albion and whatever other card. That's really good because, you know, it's pops. This is budget DPE over here. But also on end phase, now that he's in the grave, Albion's in the grave, we will get another search on end phase. Whether that's Branded Fusion or Branded in White would also go hard because that can't be ashed and we can just make a Mirror Jade at the start of our next turn. That's really cool. You know what I mean? So, yeah, this deck has a lot of gas even without activating Branded Fusion. And hopefully, like the point of me doing this is not necessarily for like the super advanced players that have been playing this deck forever and ever already, but more so for people that are maybe learning it, and it's just to sort of get you off the ground, get your mind going, show you some options that you have at your disposal. So yeah, I think that's enough analysis for this hand going into turn 2, so let's just go into the next one. Okay, so test hand 2 here. What are we normal summoning? Well, we have 1 normal summon currently available to us, but we have Foolish Burial, so we could have access to potentially another one. And then we also have 2 Bystials, which is pretty good. And one of our Bystials will get us to another Bystial. So that's worth mentioning. So we can go to the main phase here. And there's a couple schools of thought. So if we normal summon Albaz here, right? And then we go into Striker Dragon, we can banish we can banish Albaz for one of these Bystials. And then we can Foolish for the Bystial Lubellion. And we basically end on like Regained, Beast, and then Seal, if we do that. Which is not bad. That's actually a solid board, even though it might look rather minimal. But there's some other things we can actually do here because of Foolish Burial. So I'm actually going to Foolish Burial here. And I'm going to send to the graveyard our Mercurier. So Mercurier has no effect when he hits the graveyard, but we have 2 Bystials, as I said. So I'm going to summon Saronir by banishing the Mercurier. And then, of course, Mercurier has the effect when it's banished to search a monster, not including itself, that mentions Fallen of Albaz. So we have the potential to get a better normal summon here than just Albaz. And Quem, generally speaking, is the best normal summon in this deck. Not only is it a level 4 tuner, but it also sends something to grave, which is helpful for the Bystials, so we're going to search Quem here. So then what we're going to do is we're going to normal summon Quem, activate effect to send a card that mentions Fallen of Albaz. And normally in like Branded Despia, you'd send Albaz, you'd send Shroudion, possibly a spell or trap, occasionally Cartesia, whatever. But we also really like to send the Bystial Eluber in this deck, because he is also a level 4 tuner. He counts as Fallen of Albaz on field or in grave, and he is a dragon, so he's link material as well. So we're going to do that. And then we can summon... actually, I think... Do we wait on Druisworm? I think we wait on Druisworm here. I think we Synchro right away for Dispotter. So we go here. And then, of course, we have the Saronir trigger. We really want the Bystial Lubellion in the rotation, so we're going to send him now. Right here. Okay. Now, Bystial Dispotter doesn't really have a great thing to reborn yet, because Mercurier isn't really material for anything unless you're making Rindbrum. He's not link material for anything or synchro material or anything like that. So what we're actually going to do first here is we're going to make Druisworm by banishing the bystial Alubur. And the reason we do this, one, is because then we don't have to tribute this Potter for the bystial lubellion. That way, if, you know, God forbid, the bystial lubellion gets impermed or whatever, we don't lose this Potter forever. But also now we have a level 4 tuner or a dragon for link material or synchro material to reborn off this Potter. So both of those things are really good. And then this is where the choice comes in. It's like, okay, do I reborn the bystial Alubur here and make another synchro 10, like potentially Barone? Or do I just go for the back row right now? And I think I would probably just go for the back row right now. Tribute Druisworm for bystial lubellion. Declare effect. And we want regained first, generally speaking. So we're just going to do that. There's always an argument to make Beast instead. You know, maybe some matchups prefer to not be destroyed. So maybe Beast would be better. It depends. But we're just going to go regained, standard sort of stuff. Then we can Dispotter here and target the bystial Alubur. He will reborn. And then we can send him to grave for Striker Dragon. And then send these two to grave for Seal. And the only reason I went into Striker Dragon first there instead of going straight into Seal is only because in the event that we fusion later, there's a link monster in the graveyard to banish. It just gives us more options. This is obviously a Dark Dragon, so you can make Borlode Furious, or it's just an extra deck monster, so you can go into Mirror Jade, whatever. So that's like the main reason for that. Okay, so we can go end phase. Nothing really to declare on end phase, but we have 2 cards in hand and Nibiru. And Nibiru is actually a pretty solid card in this deck, even when you are going first, as long as you can still make a board, of course. Because it's sort of like a last resort card. A lot of what this deck tries to do is grind out the opponent through a lot of like 1-for-1 trades. You know, through Branded Beast and like Bystial Summons, Seal bouncing things back. So it's a lot of like chipping your opponent down in a lot of ways, you know, when you're not playing Branded Fusion. And if you're able to do that, and then they're still sort of trudging through these disruptions, we always have Nibiru as a backup plan. I can't talk. So that's actually not bad. We have nothing on end phase. Let's just say it's our opponent's turn, whatever, and we're in the main phase. Whenever they summon anything, we get a Bystial onto the field. So let's just say, you know, it doesn't super matter here. It could be Druisworm, it could be Saronir. Let's just say it's Druisworm, whatever, right? It also could be Alubur, but you probably don't want to do that on your opponent's turn so much. So, you know, free body on board. And the thing to mention here as well is that sometimes Seal actually does not want to bounce an opponent's monster. It wants to bounce a Bystial back to your hand. That can have some applications if you decide that, okay, I really need a Bystial in my hand because I need to hit something in their graveyard. You can always do that. You know, you can declare Seal, tribute itself, and then bounce your Bystial back to your hand, so you have a quick effect. And then, of course, Seal will bring out something else from the deck, so we can get our last Bystial into the rotation, if we really wanted to, being Magnamut. Again, you could always bring out Albaz, you could always fuse, we have cards to pitch, all that good stuff. But, you know, all these options, right? So let's just say Magnamut effect, on end phase we'll search a dragon, cool. And then, because we bounced a Bystial back to our hand, because we decided that was a good thing, there's something in our opponent's graveyard that we really want to hit, then we can summon Druis here, banish something out of our opponent's graveyard, and this will trigger Regained. We can shuffle back whatever we just banished, draw a card, cool, not a bad card for next turn or whatever. And if we didn't shuffle it back, then we could leave it there as ammo for Dispotter. because that could just be a monster negate, which is also pretty good. So there's always like multiple lines to go for with this deck, which is why I think it's so fun. There's always lots of things to consider. But yeah, you know, bystials are cool. And the freedom that you have with cards like Seal is also very interesting. Because like usually you're going to want to bounce like whatever is on your opponent's field back to the hand, sure. But there is some sort of applications where you'd actually want to bounce a bystial back to your hand instead. And then also another thing that we could have done here. So let's go back a little bit. Because actually, let's put you back to the extra deck. That way you're up here. So we're gonna recreate the thing we had before. This was when we triggered regained to summon Druid's Worm to the field from our graveyard, right? Another thing you can do is if you don't want to tribute Seal, which can be a little weird. Usually you're gonna want to tribute Seal because you want the grave effect. But having Druid's Worm on field when we don't have Beast, but we do have Seal, that could actually be solid enough to activate Seal. And instead of tributing itself for cost, we can tribute Druid's for cost. So we will send him to the grave, and then we will bounce a card. Then Druid's can do his effect from field to grave to send one of their special summon monsters to the grave. So either way, it's still a 2-for-1. You just don't get the Seal resummon. So that's also kind of worth mentioning. That's actually pretty cool. There's a lot of combinations of choices with this deck, and making one little choice differently can send you down a very different path, which is really cool. But yeah, I think that's enough for this hand. We'll go into test hand 3, and I'll talk about some other stuff. I hope to talk about Branded in High Spirits today. I'll try to get a hand here that actually has High Spirits, because I think that's important to talk about. Okay, test hand 3 here. So we have Foolish, Gold Sark, Retribution, Fusion, and Shroudion. So we have 2 sort of helpful consistency cards, and basically a free draw here, as well as just the blowout Branded Fusion if we would like. But we'll go to the main phase, and we don't want to commit to this right away because there's no reason to. Even if we did it right now, it might be kind of weird because we'd have to banish this for Lubellion if we went the Albion line, etc., whatever. So we're actually going to start with the Gold Sark. And we want to get a good normal summon in our hands, so we will banish Mercurier. And we will declare Mercurier's effect, search a monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz, and we want to get Quem to hand. Solid enough. So now we could probably do this first. Normal Quem, send to grave, and we'll send the Bystial Aluber, I think. That would just make the most sense. The reason I did this first too is because I want to do Shroudion's effect from hand. And I don't want to draw into the Bystial Aluber after, you know, finding a better normal summon anyways. So that's one thing, just very slightly thin out the deck, whatever. But also, if we draw into a Cartesia here, potentially, that's really good, because this counts as Fallen of Albaz in grave, and we can just special it. So we will send for cost Albaz to the grave, and then he will go to the bottom of the deck, and we will draw. And that is a baller-ass draw, I have to say. That is really fucking good, because now we can get Bystials into the rotation. If not, we also have Foolish Burial, so we could send like Saronir and then get another thing in the grave. But that's not even the best, because how am I getting the Bystials out of the grave? It would just be kind of Quem pass. And then we would be kind of forced to play Branded Fusion. So that really wouldn't be good at all. But we will do Lubellion's effect here. Declare, please. Nah, whatever. Dueling. Oh, okay. Now we're just lagging. But anyway, we're going to search a Bystial, sending him from hand to grave. And our first priority here is going to be Saronir. Okay. So here, because we have Lubellion and Saronir in the rotation, we actually can get Branded Regained and Branded Beast onto the board by the end phase, which is pretty cool. So now we will do Saronir's effect, we will summon him by banishing the bystial Elut. Simple enough. Okay. Then we will synchro here into Dispotter. And Dispotter, we can reborn the bystial Elut. Okay. Okay. Pretty okay. Also, I forgot to do something here, which is really important. Don't forget to do that. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back, because I have to actually talk about this. Saronir's trigger. This was like the whole point of like getting these two in rotation. Saronir's trigger, after he hit the grave, because we used him as synchro material, he can send a bystial to the graveyard or a branded spell trap. We have access to the bystial lubellion already, so we don't really need to send another bystial. And if we did, it wouldn't really do much for us necessarily. So we're going to send a branded spell trap. And the one we are sending actually is branded regained. Because when we get lubellion onto the field later, he's going to place branded beast on the field. And branded beast in the end phase, if it's face up, can target regained in the graveyard and place regained face up. So we actually get both. I almost forgot that, so that's my bad. But then we can do Dispotter's effect and bring back the bystial Elut. Okay, fair enough. And then let me just think here, because we do still have Foolish Burial. I'm just thinking if I have anything good to Foolish Burial here. We could Foolish Burial a different bystial, just to have something else off of regained. Like we could Foolish like Magnemut or Geoswarm or something like that. That wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing. But first what we're going to do is we're just going to link into Striker Dragon. And then we're going to tribute Dispotter for the bystial lubellion. And then bystial lubellion effect. We sent regained to the grave off of Saronir. So we're going to place beast face up onto the field. And then we can just link these two here for Hieratic Seal. And then again, thinking about Foolish Burial, I don't think we really need to Foolish Burial, but there's maybe an argument for it, because regained, we're gonna prioritize Dispotter, so sending another bystial right now is gonna be kind of useless. So I might actually just leave Foolish Burial in my hand just in case I want to use it next turn, or it's a potential card to pitch or whatever if I don't want to pitch Retribution, all that sort of stuff. But we can go to end phase here, and then we have Branded Beast's effect. During the end phase, you can target a branded continuous spell trap in your grave, place it face up on your field. So we will do that, and we will place regained. Okay, so yeah, let's play out our opponent's turn here, because that's our only end phase effect, was just the beast regained, which is really good. So let's go main phase. Let's say they summon something, right? That'll trigger regained. We'll target Dispotter. Oh, not the spell and trap zone. What the hell? Target Dispotter, and we will special summon Dispotter to the field. Now that we have a bystial on our board, Branded Beast is technically live. We're probably not going to want to pop Dispotter though. And we do bare minimum have ammo for his destruction effect. That's something. Whenever we decide it is worth it, we can do Seal's effect and tribute itself for cost. Bounce a card from our opponent's field. And then here, we can bring out one of the other bystials. So Foolish Burial, as I said before, we could have got more bystials in the grave into the rotation, but this does the same thing but better. So glad we kept this in hand, right? So here, we probably want to bring out either Druis or Magnemut. Again, there's always the possibility that you just want to bring out Albaz and Fuse, and that's fantastic if you do. But let's just say we bring out Druisworm. That way we have some really good fodder for Branded Beast. Because we can always Branded Beast, tribute this, pop a card up here, and then activate Druis's effect to send another special summon monster to their graveyard. So that alone with Seal, Beast, and Druis just took care of 3 cards, which already is insane, and that's not including Dispotter or anything else. So that's a lot of removal. That's kind of cool. And of course, you could have gone for Magnemut instead, and that would have taken care of 2 cards and give you a search on end phase. that's all perfectly fine. And as I've said several times already, you could also just bring out Albaz and fuse. That's all cool, because we have plenty of Dark Dragons to fuse with as well. If we're able to go into the Albion line and make Borreload furious, that's always really good. And Mirror Jade is rarely ever bad. So, you know, that's all cool stuff. Then let's just pretend that we play out our turn 3 here, and we'll draw a random card for our turn. Branded in white is actually crazy here. I want to point out. So what can we do here? Despotter doesn't really have a good monster to reborn right now, so we're gonna wait on that. And I think what we're gonna do first is we're going to brand it in white, and we can use the Bystial Alibur as Fallen of Albaz, which is really good. We can banish him, and let's say we banish Striker Dragon, and we go into Mirror Jade. Cool. This will trigger Regained, and I would probably shuffle back the Striker Dragon, get a free draw. That's all cool stuff. And then if we would like, oh, we just drew in a branded in red. What the hell? What the hell? That's crazy, actually. We always have branded fusion now. And the cool part about branded fusion on a turn 3, instead of, like, you know, going first or whatever, is that through whatever we do with our first turn between our links and our synchros and our bystials, is we've already sort of made an attempt to work down our opponent's resources. So it's very likely that now on turn 3, branded fusion is just like a straight up evil card, which is always really funny. So what we can go for here is, like, let's say we can send like Albaz and Nibiru, go into Albion, and then Albion banish Albaz and Nibiru for a 4K Titanic Lad. That's always really fun. We could send Cartesia and Albaz. That way we can get Cartesia later. Make Albion, and then Albion effect. And we can banish one of the Albazes, and... oh, we can honestly banish... yeah, let's banish Albaz and Druisworm and make a Borreload furious. Again, the world is your oyster at this point in the game. It kind of doesn't even matter. If we need a pop, we can always pop Albion because we want his grave effect anyways. But let's say, you know, we attack with all of these, whatever. You know, that's all fine. You know, whatever. This animation's always been so goofy to me. Let's say we attack, let's say we barely don't kill or whatever, and we didn't decide that popping was worth it. We can always just tribute Albion for the Bystial Lubellion here. Even though we have our back rows, we want this grave effect. We can set Retribution, which actually wouldn't be bad. And then Albion on end phase, we can search for a different card. At this point, it doesn't super matter, but... you know, let's just say we grab like a branded in white to hand or something like that. We could also set branded in red. Again, at this point, you've won the game if you're able to do all of this. Like, this is kind of crazy. But you have so many options. So, you know, this deck's fun. So, yeah, let's get into test hand 4, I believe. I believe that was number 3. I'll see you in a sec. Okay, so we have a High Spirits hand, and I want to talk about High Spirits because it's an important card. And if you'll notice, we play 3 copies of all of these. So some combination of this, or maybe one of the Bystials is like the Bystial Lubellion or whatever. This could very easily come up. So this is actually a really good hand to talk about. So we don't play Branded Opening in this deck, but we do play High Spirits, which is another quick play spell. And it's worth noting that Droll to this deck can be more impactful than Branded Despia. If you're playing Branded Despia, I don't really think you should give a shit about Droll, like, ever. And no one really should be siding it against you. That's kind of a bot move. As long as you make your first search the important one, that's probably all that you'll be searching for the rest of the turn, because anything else you get to your hand will probably be through the graveyard. Or it'll just, you know, be Branded Fusion Turbo and all that sort of stuff. So it's actually worth noting that you might want to play High Spirits in the draw phase. So we'll do that. High Spirits also is a horribly written card. I think it's a horribly written card. But it's also a very important one and a very good one. You get a lot of advantage off of this card. So, the first effect here, the reveal a monster in your hand and send a level 8 fusion from your extra deck to the grave with the same type that has 2500 attack or defense, is mandatory when you activate the card. You have to do that effect. This bullet point effect is optional, and the end phase effect you can't do the turn you activate the card anyway. It has to be on a different turn. So we have to reveal one of these from our hand and send a fusion from our extra deck that has the same type as whatever we revealed. And then we have the option to pitch what we revealed to search a monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz. So let's look at our hand. We have a spellcaster and 3 dragons. So I'll get our options out here just to look at, and we will talk about them. Because this is like a really important part of the deck. And I think High Spirits could maybe be one of the more confusing parts as well. So if we reveal Cartesia, then that means we will be sending Granguignol to the grave, and then we have the option to pitch Cartesia to search a different monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz. Sending Granguignol to the grave is, believe it or not the worst thing in the world. It is a fusion that hit the grave, meaning that we can trigger Cartesia on end phase if it's in the grave and add back to hand. That's something. It's potentially material for something like Branded in White. That's okay too. And it can still trigger on our opponent's turn to banish itself from the graveyard in order to special out Quem from the deck or Lulu from the extra deck. Despite not being special summoned properly, you can still do that. But after that, it's not really doing a whole lot, especially with our current hand. There are much better options available to us. If we reveal one of these dragons, we can send Titaniclad or Albion. And technically we could send Lubellion, we could send Sanctifier or Borreload, but none of those are useful in the graveyard. So the ones that are worth talking about are Albion and Titaniclad. So one of the reasons we are playing High Spirits, especially with this hand, is we have 2 Bystials, and we have 2 solid normal summons, but we can get to Quem with this card, and we really want to do that. So sending Titaniclad, although it wouldn't be bad, would be kind of redundant, because we could add Quem to hand on end phase or Albaz, but the main application, I think, would be to special Quem on end phase with Titaniclad and Grave. And if we're searching Quem, we don't really need that. But sending Albion is pretty cool because, depending on our Bystial count or whatever, if we can only get to either Regained or Branded Beast and not both on our own, then we can prioritize Regained during the main phase, and then Albion on end phase can set the Branded Beast. So we can get both that way. He does help with that, which is pretty cool. So given these options, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to reveal Albaz, and I will send to the grave our Albion. I will then also do the second effect of High Spirits because we are trying to search Quem, and we will pitch the Albaz that we just revealed in order to search a Quem to our hand. So add to hand, High Spirits has resolved. We can go to the main phase. So this just did a lot because, one, we have a fusion in grave. This will be a Branded Beast search on end phase, which is really cool. And we also searched Quem, and in addition to that, we sent Albaz to the grave while we have Cartesia in hand. So we can just special Cartesia straight up. There's no reason not to do this first, because anything we do after this will be protected by a potential Cartesia fuse, and we still have Granguignol in our extra deck to fuse into. So that's all really good stuff. So then we can normal summon Quem, activate effect, and we can just send the Bystial Elut here, since we like to banish him and reborn him and all that sort of stuff. We'll send him. That's fine. Then what we can do is we can special Saronir by banishing the Bystial Elut, and then we can Synchro here. And the cool part about Synchroing here is that we have 2 level 4 tuners to choose from, and both of them have at least one effect left. Quem has done her on-summon effect. Cartesia still has a fuse. But what we're going to do is we're going to Synchro using Cartesia and Saranir into Dispotter. And then here we have 2 trigger effects. So we can do Saranir Chainlink 1, Quem Chainlink 2 to reborn Cartesia. So we still have Cartesia fuse available to us. So that's just free. That's awesome. Now we will resolve Saranir, and we really want the bystial lubellion in the rotation, so we will send him right now to grave. Cool. That's all really good stuff thus far. Now the question is, do we tribute Dispotter right now and, you know, get lubellion on the field, and then that way lubellion is protected with Cartesia from a potential imperm or Veiler or whatever? That's worth noting. Do we just reborn something with Dispotter right now? And then maybe fuse with a quote-unquote Albaz? Or, you know, maybe just use it as link material or whatever. Or do we Druid Worm, banish Albaz, and make another Synchro 10? And we could do any combination of those things. But I would wait on the other bystial summon here, because we're going to get regained very soon. So there's no real reason to deprive ourselves of a free draw. So I think what we're going to do first here is we're going to do Dispotter first and reborn the bystial Aluber. Okay. Then I think we will tribute Dispotter for Lubellion. And then we will declare Lubellion's effect. So we are protected with Cartesia. That's really cool, just in case. We can always go into Grand Guignol, and we will still get our spell trap here. So because we sent Albion at the start of the turn, we can get Branded Beast at the end. So we will prioritize Regained right here. So we'll go Regained right there. Coolio. And then now we can Druid Worm if we would like. So we can special by banishing Albaz, and then this will trigger Regained. So Regained, because a dark monster was banished, we can target Albaz. This will go to the bottom of the deck, and we will draw a free card. Another, okay, that's weird. I did put that to the bottom, right? Anyway, we play 3, so it's entirely possible. So now we can Synchro 10 again, if we would like. We also have a Cartesia fuse. We can always link, all that good stuff. If we are going to Synchro here, I would use probably Quem, simply because we still have Cartesia's fuse available to us, and Quem has used both of her effects. And we could also use Aluber, but Aluber is link material for Striker Dragon, and we want to get to Seal. So what I would do here is I would Synchro using Quem and Druid Worm, make a Barone. You know, Barone's just generically good. Barone needs no introduction. And then we can link into Striker, and then link again into Seal. Okay, so because we drew Albaz, we could just fuse here with Cartesia. But I'm gonna pretend this is a blank for a second, because I'm gonna talk about some other things. So we can just go to the end phase here. I believe that is it. And on end phase, we have our Albion effect for a branded spell trap. And we got Regained, and we are going to have plenty of Bystials on the board at some point during our opponent's turn, so we can set the Branded Beast. And it is set. It is not like the Lubellion version, so... But we can activate it on our opponent's turn, whatever. That's perfectly fine. So we got both our back rows. We have Seal, which is already really good. Barone, we will be reborning Dispotter, all that sort of stuff. So let's just simulate through our opponent's turn. Standby phase, we don't want to shuffle back Barone. And main phase. So our opponent, let's say they summon something. We're going to declare Regain's effect and special back Dispotter. Cool. Already really good. Let's just say we activate Branded Beast. Let's say we're not popping anything yet, but we just flipped it face up. And we have a lot of things going here. So we have an Omni Negate with Barone. You know, again, needs no introduction. And Seal can do a lot of different things here. So let's say we do Seal's effect and we tribute itself for cost. We have all the Bystials in the rotation except for Magnamut. So we could bring out Magnamut and get a search on end phase. That's all really good. Or we could bring out a different Druisworm because we have Beast. Again, the 2-for-1 pop. That's all really good. Or we could just bring out one of the other Albazes. Let's pretend like we don't have this Albaz in our hand, right? And we bring out Albaz via Seal. Even if we don't fuse with our opponent's stuff here, because we left Cartesia on field, we have a lot of options right now. So let's just say we don't fuse with Albaz and we keep whatever card in our hand that we have, and we fuse these two away for our second Albion. And this is why I think playing 2 Albion is pretty important, because Albion is just really good in this deck, in the grave and on the field. So then we can go Albion here, and we have a lot of stuff to make here. We could make a Mirror Jade by banishing Striker and either Aluber or Albaz. We could make Sanctifier by banishing Albaz and Aluber or Cartesia and Quem. And we could also go into Borreload Furious because we have a billion Dark Dragons in this graveyard right now. So let's say we banish Striker Dragon and the Bystial Aluber, and we make Borreload Furious. Yet another pop, which is already really good. And this just triggered regains other effects. So we can shuffle back the Striker Dragon. We'll leave Bystial Aluber there. That way, since we shuffle back Striker, if we reborn him, we can go into Striker again, potentially, if we wanted to, or whatever. As well as it just being a level 4 tuner. And we can just draw a card. That's a baller-ass draw for turn 3. Oh my god. So that's all really cool stuff. We have Branded Beast, of course. And we can pop Borreload, Dispotter, or Albion. You know, whatever is fine. And a cool thing about this, actually, is let's say there are 2 things on our opponent's field that we want to pop. What you can do with Borreload and Beast is actually get 2 pops and only lose 1 card. But it depends on the order in which you do it. So Branded Beast, if you start with Branded Beast and then chain Borreload, that is kind of no good because you have to tribute for cost for Branded Beast. So like, let's say there's something on our opponent's field, whatever. If we activate Branded Beast, we have to tribute for cost and then target. Whereas Borreload Furious, if we do him, we target for cost, but we do not destroy until resolution. So what we can actually do here is, let's say they have 2 cards on their side of the field, right? Can we get a token? Yeah, let's get out some tokens, and we'll simulate this for a sec. So if we chain Borreload first, what we can do is we can target Albion and let's say this token, and then we can chain on top of that Branded Beast, tribute Albion for cost, target the other token. So the way this resolves is this token gets destroyed, and actually, can I even do that? I guess not. I guess I can't do that on Dueling Book. That would have to be my opponent's thing. But Branded Beast would pop this one, and Borreload on res would pop this one. And we only lost 1 card. And this is a card we wanted in the graveyard anyways for its end phase effect. So that's a cool little thing as well. Getting a 2-for-1 that way is really fun, I think. Just make sure you do Borreload first, because even if one of Borreload's targets is lost somehow, like when it's tributed for Branded Beast's effect, it still resolves and pops the 2 cards that it targeted. It's not like it fizzles just because one of the targets was lost or something. So that's a really cool thing to note as well. So yeah, this is a crazy end phase here as well. Let's say we negated something with Barone, whatever. Let's say we did Potter's effect, whether that's from over here or we just shuffled back the Aluber and popped something. You know, either way is fine. And then let's say on end phase, what do we have on end phase? So Cartesia can add back to hand because a fusion hit the grave. Albion can search. We drew into Branded and White, which is kind of crazy. So let's just say we grab a Branded Fusion, whatever. That's fine. And yeah, that's it. We can just draw for turn 3. We have a Branded in White, which can very easily go into Mirror Jade. And what I would probably do here is banish the seal and the... Oh, not declare. Banish the seal and the Albaz to make Mirror Jade. And then declare regained, shuffle back the seal. So we can make seal again if we really wanted to. And then we can draw another card. That's funny, we drew him. So yeah, no, this deck is crazy. And High Spirits also is very crazy. And knowing how to use that well is a really big deal. It gets you to a lot of important cards. It gets cards into the graveyard for your bystials to banish if you pitch whatever you revealed. And your end phase fusion effects are invaluable in this deck. So glad I got to talk about that. I think that's really important. So yeah, I think I'll do one more test hand here. We'll see what happens. Okay, so this is actually kind of similar to the last one. We drew Branded Beast, which is a little awkward, but I think we can still make use of High Spirits here. So we only have dragons to reveal here. And let's maybe try something a little different. So let's say instead of sending Albion, since we have access to Saronir and Lubellion right now, we don't necessarily need to send Albion. Not that sending Albion is ever bad. But let's just try something different here. Let's see what happens. Let's say we send Titaniclad to grave after revealing Albaz. And then we pitch Albaz to search a different monster. Since we didn't search... since we sent Titaniclad, we don't necessarily have to search Quem, even though we objectively should want to. But I'm going to try something else. I'm going to search Cartesia to hand. Since we have Albaz in grave now, we can special her. Let's just try that. So we can go to the main phase. We can special this because Albaz is in grave. And we can pitch Lubellion to search another bystial. Let me see. We do still technically have a normal summon as well. Which is maybe worth noting. That's maybe worth noting. Because we could just search the bystial Alubur here. And we can use him for some synchro material as well. I might actually do that. Let's search the bystial Alubur. Let's search the bystial Alubur. I just passed him. He is right here. Let's take him. And then let's say we normal him. And then let's summon Saronir by banishing Albaz. Okay. So then we can synchro here. And we will use the bystial Alubur just in case we want Cartesia's protection fuse. We'll make this Potter. Saronir effect. Since we drew Branded Beast, we don't want to send Regained here. That would be kind of stupid. And we already have Lubellion, so I'm just going to send either Magnemite or Druisworm. I'll probably send Druisworm since we do have access to Beast. And then what we can do is we can declare Dispotter, Reborn Albaz. That way we still have material for fusions or links or whatever. And then we can tribute for the Bystial Lubellion. And like I said, we still have protection from Cartesia if he gets disrupted here somehow. And we will place to the field our Regained. Oh, okay. Place to the field, place to the field, place to the field. There we go. And then we can fuse here if we really wanted to. With Cartesia. I don't know that that would do too much for us. We could go into Albion and then Borload right away. That's worth mentioning. Or we could just go into Seal. And I think I might just want to go into Seal. Because Seal is just busted, honestly. So we'll go Link into Striker. Link these two into Seal. Set the Beast. Go end phase. And we don't have anything on end phase except for Titaniclad. So we can special Quem here. And I will do that. So we can special Quem. Declare Quem to send to the graveyard. And we have Cartesia on field, which is good. But we can send another Cartesia to the grave right now. Because since Titaniclad hit the grave this turn, we can add Cartesia straight back to our hand. And that's really good because if we do decide to bring out Albaz via seal and fuse with something on our opponent's turn. We do have a card in hand. That's always really good. As well as Cartesia on field. We can still go into Grand Guignol if we would like at some point. Whatever. We'll walk through our opponent's turn. Let's just say they summon something. Okay. I'm going to bring out the Dispotter. Coolio. We'll just have this face up for whenever we would like. And let's say we do Cartesia first, actually. Let's say we send this and this. There we go, lagging a little bit. And we make Grand Guignol because, we decide we're going to be able to trigger Lulu at some point. Grand Guignol can send to the grave. What would we like to send to the grave? Probably something with a good end phase effect. We can send Albion. I think that would be pretty solid, just for end phase later. If we are able to trigger Grand Guignol, we can always banish it in order to bring out a Lulu. And I haven't shown this off yet today, so I would like to bring out Lulu. And this does a couple things. So for one thing, this just triggered Regained because Grand Guignol banished itself for cost. And something left the extra deck, so Quem could technically reborn something if we would like. If we reborn Albaz here, we wouldn't have a card to pitch for a fuse. We could reborn Cartesia just as another body. You know, let's just say we bring back Cartesia off of Quem, and then Regained. We'll shuffle back the Grand Guignol, get a free draw. High Spirits. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. If something leaves the extra deck, we can always do Lulu's effect. I will let you read that on your own time. It's pretty long, but it's pretty good. And we still have Seal's effect to tribute itself to bring out a different card. We can always bring out like Druisworm if we wanted to use Branded Beast for a 2-for-1. We could bring out Magnamut if we wanted to search on end phase. Either way is fine. All that stuff is great. Let's just say, you know, we used him for a pop, etc., etc. You get it. Then on end phase here, we have a couple things. We actually have a lot on end phase here. So a fusion hit the grave this turn, so this Cartesia will go back to our hand. Albion hit the grave, so we can search a branded spell trap. And I'm going to search branded in white here because we have a lot of stuff in our grave to make. So I will search one of the branded in whites. And then we have Magnamut's effect to resolve to search a dragon to our hand. And since we have Cartesia on field, I might just add Albaz to hand right now. For next turn, I think that'd be perfectly fine. And anything else? Anything else? Oh yeah, High Spirits. The third effect of High Spirits. So during the end phase, if a fusion monster was sent to your grave this turn, which there was, because Albion hit the grave this turn when we sent it for Grand Guignol, you can add this card from the graveyard to your hand. We couldn't do this before because the turn you play the card from your hand, you cannot add it back from the grave, but we can do that now. Even though we happened to draw another one earlier, hey, it's a free card in hand to pitch, whatever. And the world is our freaking oyster going into this next turn. Jesus Christ. Especially with all the stuff in our graveyard, we can go straight into Mirror Jade, shuffle back some of these extra deck monsters or whatever. If Mirror Jade banishes something and we send the second Albion on end phase, we can set Retribution because we'll have several Albaz fusions in the grave to shuffle back, so we don't have to shuffle back Mirror Jade. We have an Cartesia fuse with Albaz in hand. This is a free draw here with Shroudion. You know, anything we banish off of Branded in white or whatever, Dispotter can reborn. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy at this point. It's getting a little bit into the weeds. But I think I'm going to end it there today with those 5 test hands. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope if you're learning this deck, I helped you work through some of these things. Because like I said, there are a lot of different things you can do at any given moment with this deck. And every tiny choice leads you down a very different path, which I think is part of the fun. I also think a lot of the difficulty with this deck is not so much the setup, not so much going first and making your board turn 1, but really it's more like how you pilot turn 2 onward. Because what you choose to do, what dragon you choose to summon via Seal's effect or whatever, can not only lead you down a different path, but can really change what your opponent does. So knowing what to do when is also a very big deal. But this deck absolutely has gas without Branded Fusion. We didn't play Branded Fusion once, I don't think. You know, but it's always there if you want it, which is cool. That's a cool way to play the card. And this deck's just very, very fun. So, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Peace out. Take care.